Happy spring term, Green River College. I'm speaking to you today about a variety of things. For those of you who have been able to attend some of the office hours with the president, you know I've referenced the fact that I've been working on a video message for all of you once spring term began for a couple of reasons. Obviously, it's a notable time because spring term was our term where we began last year all remote operations. But it's also a time with spring and spring term here, an opportunity for us to take a look at some bigger picture items and to look forward to the bright future we have. So I'm taking this opportunity today to talk to you about a variety of things. There are four things I want to address. One, just a few moments to look back again on our past year of COVID operations. You'll remember that a couple of weeks ago, I sent a communication out commemorating the year anniversary of Governor Inslee's February 29th, 2020 emergency declaration that set in motion all of the things that we've been experiencing this year. So I want to honor the year that was. I also want to focus on the big picture, where we've been, what we're doing right now, and where we're going. After that, I want to talk about what it means to build capacity for the strategic plan that's forming, that's very exciting for our future, and really focus on two themes of how to build capacity for equity and excellence. And lastly, I want to set a vision that the strategic plan is providing to us. It's not my vision, it's our vision. And I want to articulate what I see and what the hopes are that I think our strategic plan says for all of us. So let's start with looking back. It has been quite a remarkable year. It was just last April when I sent a video message to all of you as we were grappling with what was happening to all of us. We had no idea, and in some ways I think it's good that we didn't know what was ahead. We certainly all hoped that the disruption that we were now in terms of remote operations were going to be short-term and very temporary. That did not happen. Our world changed, and it's changed forever. Our working conditions immediately moved into remote operations, and I will never forget that day early in March when we had to have an emergency operations meeting and had leadership from the UF and the WIFC talking about the need to convert everything we were doing, student services, all instruction, all business operations, to a remote model, and what we did within literally just days to make that happen for our college and our students. I think at this point it's fair for me to say that we are exhausted. We're exhausted from the changes in our living conditions. We're exhausted from grieving the life that we had. We're exhausted from the working conditions that we're in and the worry that we've had for ourselves, our loved ones, and our friends. And we're exhausted predominantly from caring. We care about each other. We care about our students. We care about our work. And no sooner did we get sort of settled in the context of the pandemic, we were quickly reminded of long-standing issues that became even more clearly defined and more poignantly presented to all of us in terms of the urgency of additional issues that face us at Green River College, face us as individuals, as citizens, members of this culture, this nation, and issues that have come from the history of our country. And what did we see? We saw continued examples of racial and social injustice. We saw the long expanded impacts that COVID began to expose in terms of educational inequities. And we saw the significance of the economic impacts that COVID was having. So we had a convergence of extreme expressions and illustrations, a pandemic, economic implosions, and racial and social injustice. And surrounding all of that were the larger national stressors that we were contending with in terms of an election year. We've accomplished a lot over the past year. And there's much to be proud of in terms of the efforts that we have endured and illustrated for our success. We transitioned our operations to remote. We provided virtual lobbies for student supports. We've held virtual events for everything besides our instructional and student support services, including commencement and opening day events. We've hosted a successful 7-year accreditation visit, and something I don't want us to miss, because accreditation just a few years ago was quite a massive lift given the distractions of the prior years. The success that this college had in terms of our 7-year accreditation should be remembered and not lost in all of the other work and stressors that we've been confronting this year. And we have, at this point, safely returned a number of our career and technical and trades programs to our college. What is overarchingly important for us to recognize is that through this past year, one of the most important things that has occurred is the unprecedented commitment and intense clarity we've achieved in understanding our importance of our college and our mission for the communities and students that we serve. Without question, our college is essential to the success of the communities that we reside in. Without us, tens of thousands of people's lives have no direction out of unemployment, undereducation, and being a member of the working poor. We've learned a lot this year of COVID. We've learned the importance of collaboration and innovation. We've learned the importance of building our future together. We've learned that it's really important for us to believe that we will get through these times, and we will. We've learned the importance of sharing community to provide support for each other. We've learned the importance, even more so, of empathy, understanding, and patience for each other. I think we've seen a growth in hope and trust with each other. I think we have learned to value the progress, focus on the progress that we've made. And I believe what we have shown every day is our capacity to focus on our mission and our values as we've endured this time. The future without COVID is coming. We can see it on the horizon. Things are getting better. And it's time for us to start thinking about what we're doing for our future. So as we think about our future, let's just do a recap. Where have we been? Where are we right now? And where are we going? Let's focus on the big picture. In the past several years, we have been building momentum for the year's work that's underway in our strategic planning process. Back in 2017, we focused our energies on looking at our students and our students' experience at Green River. We spent a year looking at student data, not just what was happening in Green River, but also our surrounding environment in terms of the demographics. What's happening in our communities? What's happening in our K-12 population? How is it shifting? How is it growing? How is it changing? One of the most important benefits to Green River is that we are in a growing region of King County. It's growing in diversity, and it's growing rapidly in terms of population. Many of you recollect that I said in the past, our school systems in Auburn and Kent have multiple elementary school and middle school builds that are happening. That's because more families with more children are coming, and I like to think about that as all being prospective new Gators coming our way in the years to come. So it became very important for us to realize what's happening in the communities that we serve. How rapidly are they changing, and how rapidly are they diversifying? So we spent 2017-18 looking at student data, and what we see are significant opportunity gaps. Certain populations of students perform better here. They succeed in their learning at more rapid rates. They leave with credentials and degrees as compared to other groups of students. And the question is why that is. And we asked those questions. We also worked on culture. I joined you in 2017 following a time period of unrest and conflict at this institution. And so there was a considerable need for everyone catching their breaths and settling and refocusing. And we did have to refocus pretty quickly on operations at the institution. As I mentioned earlier, in terms of the successful accreditation visit, we had a lot of work to do in terms of catching up to be prepared and ready for our accreditation visit. So accreditation was absolutely a focal point in 2017-18. And of course, fiscal management was also an issue. In 2018-19, we shifted our focus after conducting a climate survey back in 2017-18. We shifted our focus on what that climate survey indicated. And there was a lot to learn there. There were positives that were being expressed, and there were also clear challenges that were facing our college culture of nearly 1,000 employees. And we spent much of the year examining that culture. We did that predominantly through the examination of our governance structure, or the loosely fitted governance structure that we might have here, where thus the red dots became the story of that year, and recognizing how many committees and councils and task forces we had that were all doing really good work, but weren't really connected to each other. That produces a lot of exhaustion and burnout. And so we continue those conversations, which I'll pick up again later in this presentation with all of you. But we did shift our focus in 2018-19 on the culture. And with our work with students and focusing on equity for student outcomes, it raised a lot of questions about equity for people who work here, for all employees. So we started to see two threads becoming very firmly at the center of our conversations: equity for students, equity for employees. Last year, in 2019-2020, we began to focus on both of these topics. What is equity for students? What is equity for employees who work here? And how do the experiences that are happening in our communities and our nation impact the urgency of our work here as a college? So we focused and completed our accreditation visit. We began to really invest in this thing called guided pathways, which is essentially best practices that will help students find interests and pathways and stay on track to completion, whether that means movement into a career location or transfer on to a successful next destination in terms of a college or university. We continued to focus on professional development, and one of the things that I think would be good for us to reflect on is over the past several years, this college has invested in employees, all employees, more progressively each year than in the past times. In fact, that was actually acknowledged in our accreditation, that we were commended for how much investment in staff and faculty the college was making in terms of professional development. That becomes really important for the work ahead, and I'll say more about that later in the presentation. We also secured our consultants for our strategic planning process that's underway, and that began before last year was over. Faculty negotiations began last year and continued this year, and I'm pleased to say all indications are they will be completed this year. And two topics that we had begun prior to COVID, which we paused temporarily, focused on a VP for DE&I and our integrated planning and governance conversations in terms of how to build a governance structure here that is a shared governance model that works effectively and inclusively. So there was a lot going on last year, even in the midst of COVID. This year, the priorities have been very clear. First and foremost, our focus on students' learning success has continued, and the maintenance of safe college operations for everyone. Strategic planning has taken hold and is well on its way to being completed this year. The focus is equity. It's not that equity is part of our plan, equity is our plan. Financial stability and sustainability continues to always be a focus of our work. Guided Pathways continues to grow in terms of collaboration between the academic or instructional areas with student affairs here at the college. We've had conversations ongoingly this year in terms of GDEC and executive team conversations, and there's been a huge growth in the caucuses and activities that address diversity, equity, and inclusion at the college. And last but not least, our work with CTC Link, which will be a huge lift and go live event this coming fall as we onboard this new management system. I want to take a moment now to take a deeper dive in our strategic plan, our plan for equity. Laying out the past several years shows you that the topics and focus points that we have been engaged in conversations around has led us to the work of our strategic plan this year. Since 2017, we have discussed, as a college, a variety of visions. One focusing on being the first choice in post-secondary education in our service area. Next, being the first choice in partnership with business and industry. That would secure the power of our career and technical education programs and advance further partnerships in the future so that people who are desiring a particular career know that they come to the college, take this program, and they are virtually guaranteed opportunity and placement in the career that they're already interested in. We've also talked about the need to close opportunity gaps that exist among groups of our students, of our diverse learners. And we have recognized that the overall completion level of our students leaving with degrees is unacceptable at this point in time. We've also talked about the necessity of all students feeling that they belong here at this college, that they can succeed in learning and in reaching their educational goals, and that they are cared for. These are concepts that have been at the front and center of our conversations since 2017. And what we've been talking about at this college is how. How do we do those things? How do we become the first choice in post-secondary education? How do we become the first choice in partnership? How do we close these opportunity gaps that exist among our diverse learners? How do we improve the total number of students that leave here with the degrees they came to achieve? And how do we secure the reality for every student that they feel that they belong and are cared for? How? We all have ideas about how these things can be achieved. And when we ask these questions about how, what we're talking about are theories of change. So let me ask you, what are your theories of change? What is your theory of change for how we will achieve education equity for all students who come to Green River College? What is your theory of change for how we will build employee equity for all who work here at this college? What is your theory of change for how we will improve outcomes for our students, all students, regardless of their current life circumstances and the zip codes that they live in? How will we achieve these goals? How will we start to ask ourselves questions differently and look at solutions differently to make our future what we're envisioning it to be? These are all questions about theories of change. I want to take a moment to share with all of you my theories of change. I believe that education is the strongest weapon which you can use to change the world. I've used that quote many times with all of you. It is a quote from Nelson Mandela. The reason I believe in that is because I am convinced that education changes people, and it's people who change the world. Education equity is our activism. Education equity is our social justice. As a college, that's what we do. I believe that anyone can learn anything under the right conditions. I believe that all students who come to us have the intellectual ability to succeed. I believe that one of the strongest elements in the environment to support learning is having an environment that embraces and cares for all learners and validates their belief that they belong here. Learning is a profoundly emotional and psychological experience. All my years as a developmental psychologist and teaching human cognition and learning shows me that. Decades of research demonstrate that. Believing in one's abilities and believing that people care about how you do are the foundational elements for any learning. I believe change occurs within an organization when relationships and interactions shift and improve. If there are issues within a college culture, it means there are issues with how people are treating each other in the culture. College culture does not exist separate from people. We are the culture. I believe that any one of us, staff, faculty, or administrator, can affect culture positively or negatively. We are all accountable for our culture's climate. And no group controls this, nor is any group excused from this. Our culture becomes central to our students' success because we are the culture that students come in and out of. And I believe we have considerable work ahead in dismantling historical ways of operating as a college, which requires a deep understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and an anti-racist mindset. Without diversity, equity, and inclusion, and anti-racism learning, we will not succeed in our goals. So when I look at our strategic plan right now as it's forming and think about theories of change, I see a number of things very clearly that are illustrated in terms of what the plan shows in terms of theories of change. First, it's relational on an individual level and on a group level. It requires ongoing learning and growth in all of us. It requires each of us to see our roles and impact we have in building an inclusive culture. It also shows that we require new areas and offices that don't exist yet to support the envisioned work ahead. It also requires interactions and collaborations across areas of the college that will lead to better coordination to achieve our goals. And it means we prioritize equity as a foundational element to improve student learning and success. So as I look at our strategic plan and the theories of change that are emerging, it's very clear there are two profound themes that are overarching to our expectations with each other as we move forward for our students. And they center on equity and excellence. So I want to talk about building capacity for these two things and what does it mean when we talk about equity for students and equity for employees. So let's start with first equity for our students. As we've talked about before, but as a quick reminder, in our service area, only about 60% of students who graduate from high school go on to college. That means 40% who graduate from high school do not pursue immediately any higher education following their graduation. That's a significant concern. In addition, we do not have a 100% graduation rate from any of our school districts in our service area. And when we look at that disaggregated, as you know, and you would see from statistics and data that we've looked at over the past few years and we'll see across our nation, those who come from more economically stable families succeed at higher rates within high school completion. And we can see divisions drawn in terms of racial lines and economic lines. So we only have a 60% graduation rate from high school and college-going behavior. That's too many students that are being left behind at a right time for them to continue their education. In addition, for those students who come to us, you know that our overall completion rate in terms of students who come to us seeking a degree and leave us accomplishing that degree, our percentage of success is 38%. Now, comparatively, that's much higher than most schools in our state. And as a community college, it's much higher than many community colleges across our nation. But I know that none of us are accepting 38% being the best that we can do. And when we disaggregate that, of course, we can see significant opportunity gaps that exist among diverse student learners that have come to see us and to learn from us. So it's imperative that we, as Green River, as we move ahead, learn and improve even more to be a student-ready college in everything that we do. One of the ways that we're focusing our gaze on being student-ready centers in the work around guided pathways. Guided pathways requires us to be more responsive to student needs and to support their success. It requires that we evaluate policies and procedures that may create barriers for students in and out of the classroom. It requires that we examine and focus on pedagogy that embraces more diverse learners. And it also requires, and sometimes this gets lost in our conversations internal to the college, but guided pathways really addresses the larger education ecosystem. So what that also requires us to do is begin partnerships with K-12, four-year colleges and universities, community-based organizations, communities, and businesses in ways that we have never done before. So guided pathways is more than just what's happening in instruction or student affairs. It is a whole college shift in being student-ready and student-responsive. Next, let's talk about what it means to be equitable for employees. Equity for employees, faculty and staff alike, embrace several basic principles. Being able to support all of you in your respective roles, whatever they may be, and they're quite diverse at a college. Providing all of you opportunities to learn and grow, and to create a culture where each of you feel that you belong and are cared for. And that means then, as a college, we have to support excellence in teaching and learning for all of you. Teaching and learning isn't just about what's happening with our students. It's about what's happening with all of us too. So investing in you is the most effective way to advance our agreed upon priorities for our students and our college. After all, we are the culture that students are coming in and out of. If we're not right, we can't do the best work for our students. So there's a lot going on already in terms of equity for employees. As examples of college initiatives, we are currently working on the Equity in Hiring task force. We're looking at effective onboarding and support for new employees. We're talking about the assessment of areas and departmental needs in terms of DE&I. We've had a lot of professional learning already in the past few years for all employees, addressing DE&I in various ways, whether conferences and other activities. But we're talking about what kind of professional learning that all employees might need to help support them in a supervisory role, in things like effective communication, conflict resolution, how to effectively support employee development, professional learning for all employees around competencies related to their specific operational roles, related to DE&I, and the general employee expectations we have around Title IX and other areas of compliance. We've talked about the need to revise job descriptions to include universal sets of competencies and expectations of employee engagement and DE&I, and to evaluate our evaluation processes of employees to make them focused on professional growth and learning, and to evaluate the competencies related to DE&I to facilitate cultural growth in caring and belonging to all of us at this institution. And of course, it also requires that we evaluate all of our policies and procedures for ongoingly and as needed to make sure that what's happening here is equitable and is not creating barriers for employees. A lot of this is happening, but a lot more needs to happen. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, but it's exciting work. Some of the most important work I could ever imagine a college doing for equity for our students and for all employees who work here. So the question is, How do we achieve these aspirational goals of being an equitable, anti-racist college? We've got to talk about how we're going to build capacity for these aims and ambitions, because they are not just aspirational. We will be able to achieve these goals. So now I want to shift and talk about 3 essential components to our infrastructure that must become part of this college for us to succeed in our expectations of equity and excellence, and in the successful completion of a strategic plan that will be completed this academic year. I'm going to talk about 3 things: the Center for Professional Learning and Innovation, some reorganization of human resources, and lastly, the development of an Office of Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. First, I want to talk about envisioning a Center for Professional Learning and Innovation. This will be a center that will bring the foundational anchor of excellence in teaching and learning for all employees at this institution. It will be a physical space and place where all employees, faculty and staff alike, receive professional learning and opportunities to advance in their own careers and to advance in the competencies that they bring to their role at this institution. Could this include faculty fellowships, staff fellowships, institutes led by faculty or staff? Yes, all of those things. Could it include certificated programs and cohorts of learning groups, staff and faculty? Of course those things could be. But it will also require staff of some sort that would be overseeing and running this center, providing opportunities for all employees. It's a very exciting prospect. And at the core then will be its focus in excellence in teaching and learning. Colleges that foster a culture of teaching and learning excellence have a variety of elements to them. And this is what I strive for us to develop for all of you at this college. First, they use evidence-based instructional practices. The college fosters new, innovative, and emerging pedagogies. Colleges focus on student success and closing opportunity gaps among diverse student communities. There's collaboration between faculty and student affairs. We all join students as active learners. We embrace professional learning for continuous improvement in all employees. We cultivate an accessible, empowering, and personalized and supportive academic community for our students and for ourselves. And we realign expectations in hiring, evaluation, and promotion. These are elements of a college that truly is embracing excellence in teaching and learning. And that is embodied in the strategic plan that's forming, and that is at the center of our work ahead, with equity as the foundation. For students, excellence in teaching and learning means that faculty shape the student learning experience and build student success in the learning process. It means that faculty join the students as active learners in an accessible, empowering, personalized, and supportive academic community. And it means that our students have mentors across the college that support them through their time at Green River. And when I think about that from the point of contact initially all the way to the graduation day, mentoring through the entire lifespan of the student at Green River College. For faculty, excellence in teaching and learning include at least the following things. Full-time faculty and adjunct faculty use evidence-based instructional practices to foster student learning. Sometimes these practices are new, innovative, and emerging pedagogies. Where is the opportunity for faculty to try new things, to learn new things, either from their peers within the institution or outside of the institution? We need to support faculty to be new, innovative, take risks, learn from each other, even more than what's already happening. It means the faculty and student affairs have a collaborative partnership and shared efforts to cultivate learning and support for student success. That's the essence of guided pathways work within the institution. Collaboration between, most essentially, instruction and student affairs. And institutionally, excellence in teaching and learning for faculty requires that there's support that embraces and demonstrates professional learning for continuous improvement. It requires institutions to support this and to realign related expectations in hiring, evaluation, and promotion. For staff, excellence in teaching and learning would include at least the following things: expected competencies for all employees related to their role and work at the college and opportunities to learn those and strengthen those. Effective onboarding process that provides continuous support for new employees in all areas. It will provide a culture where everyone feels they belong and are cared for. It provides ongoing professional learning for all employees, focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there's ongoing professional learning for different groups of employees to further support their work. We must have a center for professional learning and innovation. It will be the foundational element that supports equity and excellence in teaching and learning at this college. It will be a model for other colleges to emulate moving forward if they're serious about making their environments truly equitable for all who work there and produce the best outcomes for student learning. Next, I want to turn to human resources and envisioning a human resource office as a foundation for transformational talent development. As you know, right now, there are a number of things the human resources is involved in: equity in hiring, salary study for non-represented employees. There have been ongoing conversations this year among GDEC and the executive team and human resources about a variety of different issues that I mentioned earlier in terms of employee equity items. And there have been conversations about how to best assess equity needs at the college. Work ahead, as I've pointed out earlier, would include at least what effective onboarding looks like, what professional learning for employee groups looks like, what effective performance review, employee supports and development for growth looks like, and the development of DEI competencies for all employees at the college, which would be embodied within job descriptions at our institution. What this suggests, then, is that we need to start envisioning human resources as being something more than it already is. It means the human resources for our future must be a place that builds a solid foundation of equity-focused hiring, onboarding, and professional growth. We must expand human resources focus to include transformational work of talent development, professional learning, and accountability for effective and collaborative relationships among employees of the college. Because these shifts are necessary and essential for the achievement of the goals we are setting for ourselves within our strategic plan and our future, there are going to be some changes that are occurring in human resources effective immediately. Primarily, Mark Brunke, who serves as our Senior Director of Human Resources, will become a direct report to the President and join the executive team. That will be effective immediately. The primary reason for this is that the role of human resources in our college's future must be elevated to the executive level. That's needed to support the college's new directions in equity, excellence, and talent development. In addition, one of the reasons for the need to elevate human resources' role and positionality at the institution centers on the fact that we're going to need further growth in HR to advance employee hiring, onboarding, mentoring, and professional development. Now, in the past 2 years, Shirley Bean, who has been serving as our Vice President for Business Administration and Human Resources, has overseen human resources during this transitional time. Some of you have joined the institution since the winter of 2019, And so you will not recall, there was an earlier reporting structure where HR was a direct report to the president's office and was a member of the executive team. And in the winter of 2019, we shifted that in a transitional time where Shirley Bean absorbed the oversight of human resources. There are a number of things that are now progressing and advancing after these 2 years of transitional time. And one that I pointed out to you now is the need to elevate HR back to an executive level positionality and to be a member of the exec team. But in addition, if you haven't heard at the college, we have a lot going on in terms of CTC Link. There are also going to be significant infrastructure improvements underway at our institution. There have been, but we anticipate a number of additional infrastructure improvements that are going to be needed over the next biennium. And with this combination of convergence of growth within CTC Link, the infrastructure activities that are going to be happening in the next few years, and the need to bring HR up to the executive level, I have determined that it is time now to have Mark become a direct report to me, to the Office of the President, and to join us on the executive level. His title will remain the same as the Senior Director of Human Resources, and Shirley Bean's title will revert back to her original prior to the winter of 2019, being the Vice President for Business Administration. I want to thank Shirley for overseeing human resources in the past couple of years as we've been building momentum for these kinds of transitions and anticipated growth in human resources. I'm very excited about these changes. Human resources and the growth that's being outlined here today are going to be as essential for our future as is a Center for Professional Learning and Innovation. Those are two of the essential elements in our future. And that brings me to the last one, envisioning an office of Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. What's been going on right now in terms of DE&I, and what's happened at our college over a number of years? As many of you know who have been at Green River for 10, 20 plus more years, I know we have faculty and staff that have been here for 30 or more years, you know that there's always been considerable grassroots work addressing equity at the college. Considerable work in terms of GDEC, its many caucuses. There has been great growth in caucuses over the past year and a half. There's been tremendous work in our Office of DE&I that has been serving our students at our college within student affairs and has been providing a lot of programming for all faculty, staff, and students here alike, and also the Instructional Diversity Council. Many groups and many activities have occurred. And there's been this year, as you know, collaborative conversations with GDEC and the executive staff. And over the years, there's been progressive growth in professional development opportunities for faculty and staff, such as conference attendance, opening day events, guest speakers, DEI training in small groups across the college and across the academic year, in-state and out-of-state. We have been expanding considerable amounts of growth. But what seems to be clear for our future is that we need more capacity. We need more to help support our goals. So the third and essential element for our future is the development of an Office of DEI under a Vice President of DE&I. This office will add to the work already underway, which can help us make greater progress. It can accelerate and expand efforts and work to achieve our overarching goals. Additional staff would also be added to this office. This isn't about just adding a single person. This is an office with people to be envisioned. So additional staff will be added to this office to support the priorities of the college and the VP of DE&I. And it's clear that this office would have considerable overlap with Human Resources and the Center for Professional Learning and Innovation. All three of these elements of our infrastructure actually overlap, as the visual earlier demonstrates. There will be overlap between Human Resources and the Center, overlap with Human Resources and DEI office. Likewise, DEI office will be overlapping with the other two. It seems pretty obvious why that would be, and I'm sure you can all make connections in terms of that. It's imperative that those three areas will be overlapped because of convergent needs and agendas to help support our work. And in addition, this will provide additional support and resources to further the work already underway at the college in all of the areas of our institution. We've had time together today to talk about the year that's been, all the things that we've accomplished together, and at the same time acknowledging how unbelievably challenging and exhausting this past year has been. But there is reason to have hope and optimism because better days are coming, and they're coming sooner than the time we've experienced in our COVID year. We've had an opportunity to refocus on the bigger picture. What have we been doing the past few years that's allowed us to talk about the things we're talking about this year together? What are we building right now in the context of a strategic plan? And where are we going? We're going in a direction where our college, will be an equitable institution for all who study here and all who work here. And what that means then, as our strategic plan comes to fruition, is that we have to be quite concrete about what we have to do to build capacity to support the work that we are challenging ourselves to do and the work that we must do for our communities, for these students, for those lives that are counting on us to bring them out of a lack of hope and opportunity and choices. And so we have focused on what that means then to build capacity for equity and excellence. And I'm focusing on excellence at the heart of everything at a college. It is about teaching and learning, not just for our students, but for all of us. And I've identified 3 things that we will need to work on right away when our strategic plan is coming to conclusion. And if people want to start conversations during this spring term, we can as well. But those 3 things that will be a main focus of our work next year as we start year 1 of our strategic plan will be establishing a Center for Professional Learning and Innovation. We will be looking at the expansion and growth of human resources in a more transformational direction. And we will be establishing what an Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion will look like at our college. These 3 foundational core elements will be essential to our success. So let me bring this all together now and set our vision that reflects what you all are saying to me and that we have collectively discussed over the past several years. We will be not just completing a strategic plan that allows for equity for all who work here and for all who study here. We will be an institution that is the first choice in post-secondary education, the first choice in partnership with business and industry, an institution that closes successfully the opportunity gaps and increases our student completion overall. And we will be an institution where every student feels they belong and that they are cared for. And what this requires us to do, and we are already doing it, is imagining and visioning our future together, which requires us to rethink, maybe even unlearn things that we've held to be tenets of higher education. We are transforming to be a college of the 21st century, not a college of centuries past. I'm reminded of 3 specific quotes from a book I read recently by Adam Grant called Think Again. And let me share with you several. A hallmark of wisdom is knowing when it's time to abandon some of your most treasured tools and some of the most cherished parts of your identity. Another, intelligence is traditionally viewed as the ability to think and learn. Yet in a turbulent world, there's another set of cognitive skills that might matter more: the ability to rethink and unlearn. What we are doing right now, Green River, especially this year, as we grapple with anti-racism and equity and what that means to each of us individually and our personal responsibility and accountability for how we engage others in our lives, let alone our college. It means that we have to question ourselves. It requires us to admit that the facts may have changed, that what was once right may now be wrong. Reconsidering something we believe deeply can threaten our identities, making it feel as if we're losing part of ourselves. That's why change is so hard. That's why this thing that people talk about, transformation, is so challenging, because it requires that we rethink and sometimes unlearn. But let me just say this. If it is true that we're losing parts of ourselves as we've known ourselves, perhaps that's opening the door, Green River, for us to be better selves. I'm reminded of Maya Angelou, who said, "When you know better, do better." With loss, there's always gain. This past year has been a defining moment for Green River, no question about it. On opening day, I said to you, we will not be defined by these crises, but this is our defining moment, and you have all illustrated just how much that was true. We committed to not let these crises define who we are. We focused on innovation at scale. We provided urgency in our work as a result of racial and social injustice that our recent contexts have amplified and clarified. We fueled our conviction in our purpose and values by recognizing just how important we are to the tens of thousands of people who live in our service area who only have us for a brighter future. We learned that human lessons are far more important than any operational lessons, because relationships and communication and our human capacity for good is at the core of all things. We realized that struggling does not mean we're failing. Struggle is part of growth and transformation. And we learned valuing others, valuing collaboration, and living good values are the keys to resiliency for self, others, and our community. They are also essential for transformation to a better future. Green River College. We see what things could be rather than how they are. We're leaving behind preconceived notions and limitations. We're aiming for things that are yet to be defined, and we will shape them collaboratively to make them so. And we believe that our vision can become our future. We are rethinking, unlearning, and innovating, and together we will achieve education equity for all. My personal hope and vision for Green River College includes the following. I wish for Green River College to be the gateway to opportunity and the world for all who come to study here. I wish for Green River College to be a college that opens the door to a global community of educational opportunities, learning experiences, and career choices for all students, regardless of their current life circumstances or the zip code they live in. I wish for Green River College to be a place where all who work here are empowered and proud of what we are doing and striving to be. Our students will change the world because of the education they receive at this college and because of how we treated them when they were at this college and how they saw us treat each other while they were with us. Our college will impact their life, their family, their relationships, and their choices because they will come to see what their importance, potential, and abilities to succeed truly are. That is who we are, Green River. The place where people truly learn how significant they are, not to just themselves and their families, but to the future of our communities. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Education changes people, and people change the world. Education equity is our social justice. Thank you for listening. I look forward to working on these transformative elements of support for our strategic plan. We have a very bright future ahead of us, Green River. You are the future of this college. I look forward to supporting our work and bringing the infrastructure that you need to do the best work that we must do for our students and communities. Our future is bright. Hang in there. We're going to beat this COVID. We'll be back together very soon. Thank you for listening.